What's that? Howls from the woods, movement under the water, something you notice out the corner of your eye, but when you look it's gone. This is Cryptid Talk. Hello everyone, how's everyone doing today? Hope everyone enjoyed the first episode and is ready for another exciting episode today of Cryptid Talk. Well, took a long hard look at what I should talk about next. Also, before that, I'm also, of course, shortly after I record my first episode, I got a little sick. So if I do a little cough here and there, or if I do sound kind of weird, I apologize for that. I'm trying to sound as the best I can. Anyhow, so we're going to start off with for this because this will be our first actual topical episode about something that I think maybe not a lot of people, or probably a lot of people saw coming, but we're going to go right into it. Bigfoot, Sasquatch. That's the first topic we're starting with today. And oh boy, howdy. I've got a lot to talk about with this one. And obviously, probably, I would say, compared to most cryptid in the world, I would say Bigfoot is probably the most popular out of all of them. Maybe right behind it, probably being Loch Ness Monster, maybe even like Mothman and stuff like that. I bet you could probably throw aliens in there, but in more a sense of cryptids, we'll probably stay with those. Would probably be like the big three if you really were to give it some sort of actual level where you would say. Anyhow, so Bigfoot, probably personally my favorite cryptid of all time, the one that I probably do the most research in and everything like that. And I can't possibly think of any other cryptid that I'd rather, put more time in because Bigfoot is honestly the creature itself, obviously still trying to figure out what it is. There is a Bigfoot like creature on every single continent minus Antarctica. Now, sure, some parts of the world, like the orang pendek in Indonesia, is a much more smaller version. But the description of it is still very similar. Just imagine a Bigfoot, but just around like 3 to 4 feet tall. But it still has a lot of very similar characteristics to it. Some sort of hairy biped that is surprisingly strong and very fast, and surprises a lot of people when it comes to it too. So and for some people who may not know, Bigfoot is got its name from the original casts that were found over in California. Someone found a cast and like, oh, look at this thing has got a Bigfoot, and then Bigfoot stuck from there. While a lot of the more Native American people usually go with Sasquatch. That's how they came up with it, or not came up with it, but that's what they called it. So you kind of got like this differentiation between Bigfoot, Sasquatch, and of course, the generic names. But then, of course, there are also regional names for the same creature. We've got the Ohio Grassman. We've got the skunk ape in the south. Momo. Flatwoods Monster. Wait, no, different one. God, I forgot the other one for the other one. Flatwoods Monster. That's another one. That's a fun other cryptid we'll get to at some point. But there are a lot of different names for for the different regions of the U.S. We'll say, but if for the same creature. But then, of course, that also doesn't stop all the different names of the creature all over the world. So, I already mentioned the orang pendek. We also have the yowie in Australia, the Yaren, the Chinese wild man in China. We got the Yeti and the abominable snowman in the Himalayas, and that's just a few. They all have their own different name. Most of the characteristics are all very similar with a few differences here and there. And quick little side note: the Yeti actually isn't white. The Yeti is actually more of like the generic like brown, black, like a lot of other big like Bigfoot like creatures are. The abominable snowman part just came of a big tall creature in a snowy area, and people are like, "Ah, abominable snowman," so we immediately make it white when and not necessarily the abominable snowman actually isn't white. But now that kind of goes into the next topic of, or at least not topic, but I guess the next section of this, you could say, is like the color, what it looks like and everything. So Bigfoot, is known as it's just a very big, tall, muscular man in a way, or ape, or whatever it is, really. He's just very, very broad, very, very tall and broad, nice big shoulders, strong arms, and everything, and it's also also all covered in hair. Some reports of it say that it doesn't have a lot of hair on its face or its hands. That's where it seems to be a lot of reports where it is free of hair. Now, obviously, there are some reports of being a bit more hairy there, but most of them are pretty general in that sense. Of course, they also got very big feet, going from 11 to 18 inches on some of the rare cases, but some of those possible tracks that people find might be a little bit expanded from being pressed in the ground too hard, or the dragging a little bit make it seem like it's actually bigger. So that can vary, but roughly around that size is the normal generic size for a Bigfoot track. And that's another. And then let's see what else. Oh yeah, of course, all the long hair, the colors that they are seen, a few different colors. We've got black, brown, and then kind of like a reddish kind of brown color. But it's always interesting because sometimes in some areas, most of the time, Bigfoot are normally seen in a very similar color in the areas. Yet there have been some reports of them, multiple colored ones being seen in the same area. But then we also do have the rare cases of them actually being seen as being more of a gray or a white, which which some people speculate is actually showing like one that might be older. Like humans do. Like our hair grows gray and white over time. Who's to say the same thing wouldn't happen to a Bigfoot? Obviously, we don't know for sure, and the sightings of gray, white-haired ones are a lot limited than even just normal sightings of just seeing one normally. So obviously, not much to go off of, but it would make sense if it is some sort of hairy biped. Maybe it does have their hair does change color. So then it can kind of go into the topic of, well, okay, well, why are the different colors of them? You can argue the fact that they all they kind of go by region a little bit. You've got like one area here they may be this color, this area here they may be there. Kind of go more in a sense more for camouflage of how so they can blend in with their area a lot more often. Because surprisingly not, for something that can weigh from like 4 to 5 to some people say maybe like 800 pound creature, it is surprisingly stealthy for something of that size. And most people are always surprised when they see something, they look, and then they look around a little bit, they're like, wait, where'd it go? And then that possibly then starts sparking all the theories of what it is and stuff like that, which we will get into that shortly, the theories and all that stuff. Because trust me, I've got my little notebook here of a lot of notes and stuff that I've been writing down, and I don't even have all of it, like what I could talk about, but just in the topic itself, we got a lot to talk about for this one. So hope you're ready for a good old time with this one. So, and then so all that stuff, it's interesting colors that they have between it. And so it's like, but of course, they are, what they are, yeah, what, let's just go right into that topic then of, what do people think it is? What do I think it is? Let's start going into that category a little bit, because like, who knows, maybe because a lot of people, let's start with the first one. Let's start with the one that a lot of people start out with, and that's the one I started out with too. Now, where I think at the moment is, it's hard to say. So, first one, the original theory that a lot of people start off with, that the Gigantopithecus theory, which it was actually was a known species of giant ape that did used to live in the forests of China thousands and thousands of years ago. So there are some, not much, but there are some fossils of the creature. So we do know it existed. And how it was actually found out that people would, like the Westerners and foreigners, would come to China and find these big old molars, big old human-like teeth. And they would ask the merchants, like, what is this? Like, what creatures does it come from? Now, whether or not they really knew for sure or they believed what they believed, but they would go with like, oh, that's a dragon, and they have heard, and that with a lot of those teeth, they would actually ground them up into medicine, saying it had extra special powers, healing powers for the people that would have it. Now, when you think about that, it's like, man, how many possible teeth, bones, anything that would really show the creature, like, more evidence of the creature, was possibly destroyed before people, like, I guess, before other people found out about it and then realized that almost every single one of these markets had some sort of teeth or bone. And who knows, maybe there's, to what we have now, there is not much of a Gigantopithecus. There really isn't. There's some teeth. We have a lower jawbone, maybe some other parts of the skull, but there really isn't much. And unfortunately, we don't have anything even close to a full skeleton to even get an idea of what this thing would look like. Sure, from what people have found so far, scientists are very smart, way smarter than me, and they are able to have an idea of the creature. And Gigantopithecus itself was about like 9 to 10 feet tall or so on like a good day. And so that kind of just shows that such a large, creature was existed at one point. Now, as a comparison to nowadays, some people can combine it as, well, we're gonna throw some references out there a little bit. You can kind of compare it a little bit to orangutans a little bit, just on how they kind of generally look, because they didn't climb trees. They were way too big to possibly climb trees. But they kind of, they ran on all fours, kind of like a lot of modern day apes. And it kind of had like a reddish color, but they're not fully like they, but like that. Or even like this, if you saw the movie, the live action Jungle Book, their version of King Louie, voiced by Christopher Walken. Sorry, his voice is fun to do sometimes. He actually called himself me a Gigantopithecus, that they're like, huh, that's interesting. They made him kind of go like a Gigantopithecus route. Now, Gigantopithecus wasn't as big as King Louie in the movie, but you can kind of get an idea of what it kind of would look like. Sure, they kind of made him a more giant male version of an orangutan and then called him a Gigantopithecus, but that's kind of like a close idea. If you look, I'll post an image of what Gigantopithecus looks like on the Facebook page, and so along with the link to the episode here, and you can take a look at it from there. But yeah, so that was a known ape, ape species that existed at one point. So now, how does that lead to the current, theory that Bigfoot, Sasquatch, and all of the so many other different species is Gigantopithecus? Well, surprisingly enough, if you look at a flat map of the Earth, obviously proportions and distance of certain things are a little bit skewed. But if you really do think about it, Russia and Alaska are actually a lot closer to each other than most people think. Now, I could be wrong, but I feel like at some point um, you can actually see Russia from Alaska. I could be wrong though, but you might get to a certain height or something like that. But it really isn't that far. So the theory was that during the Ice Age, when there was an ice bridge that connected Russia to North America, that that Gigantopithecus crossing over that ice bridge and came over to America, and then they just dispersed from there, going to the different regions, adapting to the area, still keeping some of their big size, but then shrinking down a little bit to be a little bit more modern size. Because fun fact, if you actually didn't know this, but if you look back at fossil records of like big animals, for example, big lizards, bugs, and other things, they were a lot bigger than the animals we have today. The reason for that is because there's a lot less oxygen in the atmosphere to support this. So over time, evolution made them grow smaller so that their bodies could actually compensate for the lack of air and oxygen that was in the world compared to where they when ancient back then when there's a lot more trees and everything like that to support those bigger bodies. But as there's a little bit less oxygen in the world, human, buildings and construction and everything, they had to evolve to get smaller so they would survive. So maybe if that was the case, you could probably argue the fact that that's why they would be a little bit smaller in this case. So there's your little fun fact of the day. So all right, so now the over time, as I've learned more about other theories and stuff like that, does the Gigantopithecus theory make sense for everything? No, I don't think it does, or at least it's possible that it doesn't. Because when you really do look at it, that maybe at one point when Pangea was still connected, or even maybe a little bit later, they were still connected in some way, but the planet was starting to, or the continent was starting to disperse. There we go, into the continents that we know and love today. But maybe Gigantopithecus spread out even before that. But I could be wrong. But I believe that that by the time Gigantopithecus was around, because apes came around a bit later on, way past dinosaurs and everything. And I think the spread of the continents had already started. But again, that's hard to say because figuring out what things were with evolution and stuff like that, that gets pretty tricky. And I'm nowhere near a scientist or even smart enough to even pretty much explain it fully for a lot of people to say. But that's the best thing I can go for right now. But so that was the theory that I and a lot of people start with, and some people still believe that it spread out through there, and then we have the different variation of Bigfoot throughout North America, and even then going to South America, and again there's something like this on every continent except Antarctica, but Antarctica's got some weird stuff that I think if you're interested in hearing about some Antarctica cryptids or some weird stories that I've heard about there, put a comment in down below, and let me know. So that's the one theory that a lot of people say and stuff like that. Another theory that a lot more people are backing up more these days, because there seems to be a lot more evidence for it, is that it is more of a ancient hominid species, ancient human that lived along. No, I wouldn't say hominid, but just hominid. But because like humans, us, we are apes. We evolved from ape species, and then evolved to what we are today. So so now that's like, okay. So where do we go from there? Well, there are I'm I'm very bad at saying some of these names, so bear with me a little bit. But some of them is like like Homo erectus, Homo thuringiensis. Uh, goodness gracious, there was another one. But more or less, a lot of people think that they more of an ancient species, a hominid that somehow survived till modern day and still kept more of its more primal aspects and not evolving like into the Homo sapiens that we are, today. Now, okay, so now the one thing that people would say is like, oh well, if Bigfoot or Sasquatch is a real thing, why do we not have where are the fossils? Where are the bones? We find fossils and bones of animals all the time all over the U.S. Yeah, sure you do, but in a lot of areas, you'd be surprised. You need very specific circumstances and environment for fossils to have even formed, and so we'll start with the Pacific Northwest, California, Oregon, Washington, British Columbia, like the epicenter, the home of the Bigfoot legend. Started there, or at least was started to become really well known out there. And I'm not sure if you've ever been there. I haven't been there yet. I plan to. I'm hoping this year. Fingers crossed. Um, but if you go out there to the Pacific Northwest, it is very wet out there. It's very wet and damp. The ground is very soft, and sure, okay, like okay, something dies there and stuff like that, and the fossils, like could form there. But you need like a lot of fossils are kind of found in like deserty, rocky areas. Now, again, not a scientist or anything like that, but from what I know, and again, I could be wrong, but you need like those are the areas that a lot of times when you see paleontologists digging in the ground are very deserty, rocky areas because at one point the environment was perfect there to preserve fossils. Now, things that are in the wet areas, the just the ground itself is not very good for getting a fossil. So it's not like you go out in your backyard, dig there, and boom, find a fossil. Okay, sure, maybe you might be lucky in some cases, but in most people, not many people can simply just do that. So that could support at least the one theory of like why there's not any fossils, because that's the one big thing, especially with scientists. They're like okay, well, where are the fossils? We need a fossil record to prove this thing grew up here, evolved here, and it's like, well, you don't have the fossil records, and they're saying that, okay, well, the creature doesn't exist. Okay, like that's the tricky thing about trying to prove or just confirm the existence of Bigfoot the scientist, and that's just one of many things. And goodness, I know there are so many different directions that we can take this. I'm trying to, just I'm trying to keep it together a little bit. 'Cause I'm actually been doing pretty good right now. Okay, let's back up a little bit. And in 1967, the very well known, the very famous PG film, or the Patterson and Gimlin footage, came out of these two men out hearing. I've heard that there was a possible Bigfoot, like a Sasquatch like creature, and they go out and they get the most famous and probably the best video evidence of Bigfoot to date. Sure, we got some good close ones and everything, but that was it. That's what gave everyone the famous, like, the little famous pose of it. Its left arm being out, its right arm being out, like that famous pose. When you look at a Bigfoot, you get that little side profile of every footage of Bigfoot, of everything. I'm even wearing a shirt right now of the Bigfoot in that pose. So I think I heard somewhere that someone said, like, huh, what if we recorded Bigfoot and we never got that pose of Patty, which was what they named her, because if you actually look at the footage correctly, she actually does have breasts. So, fun fact, there are female Bigfoot. Woo! They got to reproduce somehow. But anywho, so someone was like, so what would happen if, we never got that side profile of Patty? Like, what would we have to, what would be like the image of Bigfoot? Who knows? Maybe it would just be just standing there, just looking at you with its arms out on the side. Maybe that's what it would be. Who knows? But just a little interesting food for thought of, what would we have today? Anywho, so that's the one, the most, that is the famous footage of Bigfoot to date. And there's been so much more footage. There's a lot more videos, pictures, tracks. Now, unfortunately, the one thing about it is that, a lot of them were fake, unfortunately. But there is one good thing when it comes to the fake pictures and all the fake evidence that has come out. We can learn from that. Especially tracks, because tracks have a very unique thing of how, because Bigfoot don't have an arch like us. So if you step in the foot, there's always like that little bit of arch in the ground. But they have more. Their foot is a lot more flatter and more flexible to go along with the, to being able to traverse the environment that it goes through, of just going through without any problem, because their feet are just so soft and flexible, and they're just able to do what they do. So that's why if you see a lot of tracks, a lot of times they seem like they're just very flat in the ground and don't have that arch. Like, if human steps in the mud, you've got that arch there. And so, goodness, where was I going with this? But yeah, now we can learn from the fakes of that. Unfortunately, a lot of when you find a track, a lot of times tracks that people find are not very well defined. You really can't see them that well. They're not that deep. It's not like you can like step in there like it's like, oh, I can clearly see the toes in here. Sure, there are plenty of tracks that are pretty good, and you get the identifiable the five toes in there, and you see the foot. There's a lot of tracks though don't normally come out like that. Normally, you get an idea like, okay, you can kind of see it here and there, but it's not as well defined as some very rare tracks. Or I guess you could kind of call it a stereotype a little bit of, like it's like, oh, if it's not a clean track, oh, it's not real. Well, they're not always walking in the most pristine casting foot tracking material that would leave an obvious track. You gotta get pretty good at seeing the tracks and just seeing all the little details, because and because I found a track in New Jersey about 11 inches. I'll also post a picture of that too. And the only reason why we were there was because there was a report of a juvenile. I think if I said it or not, I found it in the New Jersey Pine Barrens. I may have this in New Jersey if I didn't, but at least it was in the New Jersey Pine Barrens, and about a mile south from where I found the track, a juvenile was actually seen crossing the road about a few years before that, and this track was found a few years ago. Again, I'll post it on the Facebook page so you can take a look at it for there, and I'll put a link to the Facebook page in the description of the video. So that was kind of cool. Possible track. It's hard to say for sure if we really did find a track. The snow had just recently melted, and so we were walking back on the trail, and there it was on the ground. We called it the flashlight on our way back, and so it was around 11 inches long, which is not out of the range of a human foot, but it was a bit deep in there, in like the path, because it was actually going across. If you're walking one way, it was on the path on our right just before going into the woods. So it was either running or it just took a step from the woods into there. But talking to a few experts, I have shown the picture to Dr. Jeff Meldrum, Cliff Barackman, Adam Davies, Mark Marcel, and a few other people. I have shown the picture to, and a lot of them are saying maybe, and there's not enough to it to the picture, because I was so excited, even though I was being calm about it too. I didn't take enough picture at different angles, and sure, I put my hand in there and scale, and I put my shoe next to it, and with my shoe it was about 11 inches. Unfortunately, left the tape measure at home like a dummy, but I learned from that. And so that was, a possibility there. And then I didn't obviously say like, oh my God, we found one. No, because anytime you find any sort of evidence, you see something, you gotta think logically first. You gotta be like, all right, let's go through all the possible steps. Let's see if we can confirm, is this or is this not what I think it is, and go from there. You gotta think logically. You can't have Squatch on the brain, which some people do have by sometimes, and they see what they want to see. They see a shadow like a Bigfoot, or like a stump or something. But you just got to breathe, take your time, and evaluate the situation scientifically and logically. Then go through all the things from there. And if you've gone through every possibility of what it's not, or what you think it is, what it is not, something like somewhere around there, that then you would then be able to like, okay, if it's none of these logical things, it's not a bear, it's not a person or anything like that, because again, the snow had just melted, so it wasn't that warm, but it was still kind of chilly, so no one would be in the right mind with doing bare feet through the woods like this on this day, even just on the normal path. So like, okay, so gone through there. So I personally believe that it possibly might have actually been a juvenile Bigfoot. I believe that it might have been. I can't 100% say for sure that it was, but I would like to believe that it is. And for a first time looking, that's pretty exciting. So yeah, I that was a very exciting thing for that. And unfortunately, I did have casting material in my car, but it was getting dark out, so we weren't sure if like if we should make the cast and then wait like the hour or two for it to set enough so we can then dig it out and then take it home. But then we also ran into the possibility, like, all right, well, what if, like police or park rangers come by, like, hey, what are you doing here? And then, we didn't really want to get in trouble. Ooh, excuse me. So, but thinking back to it now, I should have just made the cast, put the material in it, and let it set. And if a cop, or and wait in the parking lot, and then if a cop or someone did stop by, and they'd be asking what we're doing, like, look, this is what we're doing. We found a possible track. We're making a cast of it now. As soon as it's dried, we'll dig it up and we'll be out of here. I would even like, do you want to see it? Have you heard anything? Like, I could have I should have done that, but that's a mistake that I'm going to learn from here. Everyone makes mistakes, especially the first time around in here. So I learned from this, and then next time I'll be ready. I'll be a lot more better prepared for the next time, because I have bought a thermal camera, and it's a BFRO thermal camera, and it's actually pretty good. It's not super duper mega expensive like some of them. You have to start paying like two, three, four, five, even $10,000 for like decent ones. But there are cheaper ones around like five, six, 400, like $400, $500, $600. But the quality of them are just not very good. You see, like, hey, look at that, a red blob over there. I cannot tell anything. At least with this thing, it's actually pretty good detail. You can see pretty far. I can even put my hand on a tree, take my hand away, and you can actually see the residual heat of my handprint on that tree still. So that's pretty cool. So whenever I go out, I always have that on me. I got my sound recorder and it, just everything like that. Sorry. So let's get back a little bit on track. So, okay, we thought that. Okay. So this was interesting. So within the past year, I heard an interesting story about a hunter in his tree stand who observed the Bigfoot that noticed him and they looked at each other for an extended period of time. And at one point, I think the hunter said that the Bigfoot like yawned or something, and got a good look at his mouth. And the one interesting thing that the hunter said was that it didn't have any fangs, like you would think on a primate. And once I heard that, I looked into it a little bit more, and the reason why primates have fangs is intimidation factor of other apes, other species like it. The hey, stay away from me. I'm like, show aggression, show their strength. Like, hey, get away from me, arr, kind of thing. So then I think, okay. And then I looked into, like, okay, why don't humans have fangs? Sure, we do have like two little teeth, little, guess, we do have technically have little fangs that show that our teeth have grown much smaller, much smaller compared to the fangs of ancient ape species from back in the day. And something, all right, why don't we have that? Well, it's kind of it's the opposite reasoning for why apes have it. We don't have fangs because we don't want to seem intimidating to mates. We have figured out other ways of showing intimidation, with like maybe like weapons or like a rock, showing how big we are and strong, and trying to, hopefully that be enough to do that. But yeah, so that's the reason why, at least one of the possible reasons, there's theories behind it, is that so we seem less intimidating to females and seem like, oh, okay, this human being looks kind of nice. I'll hang out with him for a little bit. So it's kind of an interesting fact. And I heard that, I'm like, huh. I mean, I guess that mean, not guess, but that makes sense, because when we come down to, humans don't really have the most intimidating mouth, teeth, or angriness face, like a lot of other ape species do, because they got their big old long teeth and everything to show. Because that's how a lot of apes, show in apes and monkeys and primates show that, they show their teeth to show like, like their 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 anger, intimidation to someone else. But I think I've said that a few times. If I did, my mistake. So just an interesting little fact of why humans, Homo sapiens, did not evolve with big old fangs like our old ancient ancestors used to be. So now, how do you like kind of like how's the best way to try to sort of look for a Bigfoot? Let's excuse me. Let's go into that a little bit. Well, the one first thing is, if you're just starting out, try to get an idea of where they have been seen before. because a lot of times if they've seen there once, you will see them again there. They like to travel through areas that they've been through. Now, whether or not they always stay in the areas, hard to say, but they know that they can travel through there. Ooh, sorry. And they know they can travel through there before, so they're like, all right, I'll come back here at some point. Now, do they do this like every week, every month, every 2 months, every year? Who's to say? But it's at least a good starting point. And like for me, when finding the track, there was one scene, in the area not that long ago. So it's like, okay, so when we found this, so it kind of adds up a little bit. So that's the first step. Find out where they've been and go there and start from there. And then go out from there. Now, sometimes, sure, maybe it would be nice to go to an area where they haven't been seen because maybe there was no one there at the time of them traveling through, and you're the person there that happens to come upon them when they are traveling through there one time, if you're lucky. But again, the game for Bigfoot is a gamble. Some researchers go months, years without any sort of activity, and some people, of anything like that. And then some people go their entire lives not even seeing it, or they see it once and they want to see it again, but then never do. So you also got to play that into the factor too that you, you are gonna you're gonna get a lot of times where nothing happens. You don't hear, you don't see anything. Just just be aware. You're not gonna a lot of times nothing's gonna happen. Sometimes the best thing to actually do is actually instead of like vigilantly just looking, is go out into the woods and just go camping, go hiking, enjoy nature. And surprisingly enough, that's where a lot of reports for people come from. Actually, they're just out hiking in the woods and they hear or see something that obviously those people who saw had their experiences had no intentions of ever seeing anything like that. And so it's like, okay, all right, there's that kind of thing. Um, so just keep in mind of that. Now, a lot of time people say like, all right, well, what kind of equipment do I need? Well, there's a lot of equipment. For me, I've got my therm, I've got my sound recorder, I've got some stuff to collecting possible DNA evidence, and a few more things, but I'm getting there. But the best thing you do, if you have a camera to either record or take pictures of, record, by the way. This is going to be a little bit of a tiff for me, just a little bit. It's a little bit of a gripe I have, but there's a lot of pictures that I've seen, a lot of different cryptids, not just Bigfoot, but a lot. That, my gosh, my goodness, if it was only recorded on video, it would be so much better. There'd be a lot more detail. We might be able to see more. Okay, sure. If picture is the best thing you're able to do, sure, take a picture, but try to record video. Video, in my personal opinion, is just a better way of going when recording evidence because you can then get different angles at live time and everything. But again, I'm not saying that like, oh, you took a picture, oh, you're the worst person ever. No, if you're able to though, take a video. At least that's my personal thing. Try that; it's a lot better. At least in my opinion. Anywho, so okay, so now so now other descriptions about it that I actually didn't go into a little bit is when people see them, they're flashing their light around and they sometimes see like eye shine. Now almost every animal has eye shine. Humans not as much, but a lot of mammals do. Deer, raccoon, owls, Bigfoot, foxes, they all have eye shine. Eye shine shows that their eyes were built to be in the darkness, so they reflect the light. Now, a lot of different animals have different colored eye shine. Um, so some of the ones that red is most oftenly seen, or at least from a lot of people say that red is most often commonly seen when they see the eye shine. But there's also you got like a green and amber, and even in some cases, some people say they have blue. But a lot of times, so it's like okay, you see the eye shine, and because deer obviously have a much smaller head, and the gap between the deer's eyes are obviously a lot smaller. But Bigfoot having such a big body, big eyes, their eyes are obviously a lot wider apart. So when they're wide apart or you're higher off the ground, that kind of shows that okay, maybe you've got something there. So something to keep in mind, if for eye shine and other stuff like that. So now Bigfoot obviously, not obviously, sorry to me, that there might be some people who may not be obvious to. Bigfoot also have a few forms of communication. They've got howls, whoops, wood knocks, you know, tuning, break, yeah, banging two rocks together for some to make a loud noise like that. There's even been a few cases of them talking. Like it's kind of hard. It's like a rah, 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 or like it's a very deep guttural noise that they make, and there are a few recordings of possible talking between at least two different Bigfoot in one possible audio recording. So it's very interesting that because I have a lot of people, the people who have heard and tried studying the sound videos, or not sound videos, just the audio of it, like the frequency, like the volume, the pitch, everything about it is almost impossible for a normal human to do. It's like, sure, we might be able to get close. Oh, excuse me, but get we can't get to that level of like just volume or just how it's done. So it kind of shows like, okay, so now in my sense, it adds a little bit more credibility to some of these because a human just can't do it. Sure, again, can we get close? Yeah, but not really much. And it's just so interesting that something like that, it's crazy. I can only imagine being in the woods and just hearing like that noise, like oh my gosh, like I can't believe, like what am I hearing? That does not sound human at all. Um, and it's just so interesting. Okay, and then we'll also get into a little bit that since I am an amateur Bigfooter, I want to get my because now that it's starting to get a little bit nicer out. I want to get my feet on the ground more, get out there, and at least try because you can't have a Bigfoot experience if you don't go out into the woods. So that's what I want to do. But anywho, last October, end of September and the beginning of October, I actually went on a BFRO expedition, the Bigfoot Researcher Organization, founded by Matt Moneymaker, who I have met. There's also on Finding Bigfoot, and I have met all of them. We'll get into that actually after this story. Anywho, so we went to an area, and this was in Pennsylvania. I can't say where, but the area in Pennsylvania is well known for Bigfoot activity. And I've actually heard about this area beforehand before I found out where we were going. And I'm like, okay, so I've heard about this before, so there's something about it. So we go there. I get there. I start meeting everyone. Set up my tent and everything. And it's like, all right, you know what? I got friendly with some of the people there. Like, there's a little road just along camp. Let's go down there for a little bit. And maybe we were probably walking like 10, maybe 15 minutes, just here and there. And I'm probably about. I'm also not the best at distance, but I'm getting better. It's surprising how when you get an idea of yards on a football field, how helpful that actually is. I'm trying to gauge the idea of where it was, just distance. Anyhow, so I went up. I was a little farther up a little from everyone else, and I was probably maybe like 30, 40 yards from everyone else. Next thing you know, I'm looking at the forest. Next thing you know, I hear this loud thud next to me. I look down and I can I didn't see it, but then I hear this rolling because on the trail, on the road we were on, it then dips down and there was a hill down there. And I could hear there's a thud and it's like something was rolling down the hill. So I look down, I look over the people over there. They look at me. They're like, was that you? I was like, no, it wasn't me. It was like, was a rock just thrown at you? I'm like, I think so. So across the area from where I was looking, there was a forested area over there, and I was like, you guys all heard that thud, right? They're like, yeah, we heard that. So I haven't even been there even for maybe an hour or two, and we started hiking, and a rock gets thrown at me. Now, and again, it was pretty close to me. It was on my right side. Unfortunately, we weren't able to see the rock, but because it rolled down the trail on the road, so we couldn't really, get a good look at it or anything like that. But that's also something else. Also, they also do for intimidation factor is rock throwing. They will if you're like in a tent or your house or vehicle or whatever, they will throw a rock at you, and they'll throw a rock either where you're staying or nearby you to, hey, here's a rock, get out of here. They're trying to scare you away. And so I was like my God, and sometimes some of these things are like these small little ones. There have been some stories of these things throwing like rocks the size of like someone's head or bigger at people, like knocking trees over, throwing stumps, sticks, like throwing things at people to scare them away. And because they, for a creature, for being for a creature they are very, very smart, and they know how to scare the crap out of people. They are very good at it, and they know how to mess with people. So I actually personally kind of find it kind of funny. It's like, yes, go Joe. What, Steve? Here, I threw this rock at this guy. He ran away scared. Wasn't that funny? Ha 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 ha. So the fact that they know how to scare us is very interesting in that fact. So okay, so the day continues, and there wasn't not much more happened after that because it did start to. We did go out nearby, and it did start to slowly rain a little bit. Now, some people just say because like a lot of animals, when it does start raining, they tried finding shelter or just hunkering down for the night and not moving. Some people say that it might be the same for Bigfoot. That when it starts raining, they hunker down somewhere because they don't want they want to deal with it. But some people might say that they actually take advantage of that, and knowing that no one will be out, they might take that advantage and start going and might start using that to travel or food or hunt or whatever. So there are arguments to both sides of it, and because since they are mostly nocturnal, they do a lot of their activity at night, a lot of their travel and everything. Yeah, sure, there are a lot of stuff them being seen during the day, but you can kind of argue the same fact with like raccoons and foxes. They are not necessarily fully nocturnal. So if you see a raccoon during the day, don't accuse that it's rabies. It's just, they're not fully nocturnal. They do a lot of things in the day. So here's another quick little fun fact for you right there. Anyhow, so it was getting a little drizzle day, and I had my therm. I did see a little mouse. I just saw him like just scamper away. I'm like, oh, look at the little guy. So nothing else happened that night. We all retired back to camp, and thankfully because I had the proper tent and everything, it was actually coming. It actually did rain a bit after the fact. So luckily it happened after we all came in for the night. The next day, we went to we. I heard about this camp that has had we had in the past BFRO expeditions here that they did have activity here, and this was also a very nice big tall mountain too. So actually, hold on, what happened? Was it that or that first? I'm trying to remember. Huh. But yeah, okay, no, that happened before. Okay, so actually before that, actually, I heard about this camp. We said we'd go in there later. Before that, though, I two people that I met on the camp on at the expedition who I actually became good friends with. We decided to all right, you know what? Let's get in the car and let's head to the top of the mountain where we are and just go from there. Sure, we get up there, we get in the car, go all the way up, and we're all three of us are exploring. Found like this really cool like black acorn. It was very, very interesting. I actually kept it and brought it with me because it's pretty cool. And we're seeing some really cool rock formations and everything. So we're just going. And then we get to, I guess I'm pretty sure we're like at like the top of this of the hill mountain that we're on. And it was also pretty foggy. And we get to this point of like I guess like some sort of like ravine or canyon below us. Nothing huge, but again, it was foggy, so I really didn't have an idea of how deep or big it actually was. So we're up there, and you know what? I've got my wood knocker here. I'm like, let me do a quick little wood knock for it to travel through there. Like, sure. Got my wood knock and did one solid wham. And I'm like, okay, so we'll just wait here. We're sitting there quietly for a few moments, and then very silently we hear a little response coming from what sounded like from down in the valley. We look at each other. Where we all look at each other like, you guys heard that, right? Like, yeah, was that? And it's like, was that what I think it was? Like, possibly. So we waited a little bit, just kept quiet, just kept listening, and I'm like, should I do another one? They're like, yeah, do another one. Got my wood knocker, hit the tree again. Good sounds, but I got good sounds from both times I did it. And then we waited and waited, and then it only happened once, but then we got like a from down in the valley, and I'm like, did that thing just did we just get a response grunt? And like, I think so. So obviously, again with the fog, it's kind of hard to say, but the way it sounded, that I did a wood knock, I got a little response back. Did another wood knock, and I got like a grunt. I got like a possible grunt back, which I thought was like, wow, my first real expedition, and I'm getting activity, and that made me very excited. So we believe that on at that time we had a response back and then a grunt back. So that was very very interesting. And unfortunately, we hung out a little bit there a little bit longer, but we got nothing else. So we moved on and continued on with our day. So we got to next that night. We went to the campsite or this location where we were going to be starting the night investigation there. And we're kind of like, everyone spread down their groups. Some people stay in a camp, some people spread out. So I go out of the group, and unfortunately, where my group was, we didn't really get anything. We come back though, and we apparently stuff happened at base camp and another group that went off just the trail. Excuse me, a little bit. The people on the trail said that two of them were just staying there talking, and they could hear movement behind them. But obviously, the thing you do is that you hear movement, you don't do like a quick turnaround, like and point, like, oh, what's that? You stay very calm and just be like, all right, I think I got activity behind me. It's like, yeah, I hear it. You have to be very calm and collective about it, and not like aim your flashlight around and like anything like that, because that would most likely probably scare them away. And as there's someone else, a third person coming up to go join them, and just as they were getting up, they heard movement, and they all then quickly looked behind them. A little bit saw like this black figure running into the woods, and they could hear it running away. So like there was one like sneaking up on them. For what reason? Hard to say. But then also there was also a very loud power knock that was heard, and I've heard the recording after the fact, and it's like a wham, and it wasn't that far away. I would say that it was at least within like it was about 100 yards, maybe a little more from everyone, but it was pretty impressive, and it was a forceful knock. I've heard a lot of recordings of a lot of different knocks. A lot of them were like a little knock, knock, but this one was like a wham. And there's a lot of people that call it like a power knock, like a really single, hard, showing your force and power kind of knock. So that was pretty cool. And unfortunately, I wish I was part of something that night, but not this time. So the very last day there, we go through do some some stuff here and there. Unfortunately, during the day, we might have possibly found a track hiking around the area, but it was kind of inconclusive. But it was very interesting. That night, though, we went to like a lake, and we all went there and everything, and we're just looking around, and and since I had my big old my big old water boots, I went out a little bit farther onto like this little. I stepped into the water a little bit, kind of like where I guess a little sandbar or so, like dirt bar or something like that in the lake a little bit, and so, we do some hows, and then very clearly we then hear like this wah 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 wah, these very four like woos wahs woos yells out in the distance. It was kind of far, but like we all heard them. And then then actually after that we then start hearing, like, we heard some coyotes, like, possible coyote howls. Now that's another interesting thing, that a lot of times when if you do a Bigfoot howl, or you do one, a lot of times coyotes will actually react to that, and they just go off. They start going crazy. And a lot of times Bigfoot are also known to replicate coyote howls to try to hide them, try to mimic themselves, or so people are not aware of them. Again, these things are very very smart. And we all heard that, and then possibly heard like a very generic Ohio howl, like a ooh, kind of howl. And that was me doing a very light version of what I can do, because I don't want to freak anyone out. So anyhow, So we heard that, and it was very. Some were like, ah, we're not sure. Maybe that might have been coyotes, but it was very very interesting. And I was, you know, for a first BFRO expedition, I was thrilled that I was able to get activity. Now, sure, we were lucky. There are a lot of these BFRO expeditions that they've had nothing. It's been quiet. They weren't in the area, or they were just being quiet and anything like that. So we were just a lucky group. Excuse me, that just happened to have activity where we were, and that again, that's not common. So, the fact that it happened though, regardless, was great, and I am cherishing that experience for the rest of my life because of the connections I made, what I learned, and I can say I've heard of Bigfoot. Not many people can say that, but I've heard Bigfoot, and I'm I love it. And it was like I was like telling everyone stories about. I was like, oh, this. It's whew, man, that was great, and I cannot wait to go on my next BFRO expedition. Just normal expeditions, just normally itself. So that was a great trip, and I'm hoping to go on another one sometime soon. Something else also interesting is that July 17th, I believe. Let me do a quick little thing real quick. Yeah, it's 16th. July 16th of this year is the 100th anniversary of the Cape Ape Canyon incident, which a good friend of mine, Mark Marcel, was actually just named Bigfooter of the Year last year because of his research he had done for it. But that is going on this year, so it's a long story short. Some miners were mining in an area, and they kept having these things like throwing rocks at them. They kept hearing these noise, and at one point they shot at one of the creatures and possibly injured one. Well, after that, all hell broke loose, and these things started like throwing like rocks at their house, at their little cabin, banging on, like trying to scare those people out of there. And this was like 40 years before we got the Patterson Gimlin footage. So the fact that this is probably one of the well-known Bigfoot sightings before report stories before the ape camp, before the PG film, as most people shorten to say it. But another interesting thing that I believe that Bigfoot is real is that there's too much evidence. There's way too much evidence for there not to be like, oh well, they just don't exist. Because there's a lot of, sure, we don't have anything super duper mega concrete that would be able to convince a lot of people or scientists. But the fact that most people have gotten all these tracks and video and pictures and everything, there's too much evidence of that to be ignored. And again, isn't those concrete things like 100% prove something? No, but it shows that there's going on with something. Because sure, some people say like, oh well, it's probably fake though. Like all these people are probably lying or misidentifying. Sure, unfortunately, there are some people who do lie about what they saw or pictures and videos that they have faked and stuff like that. Which, it's kind of the unfortunate thing that when the time does come, we do get that really good video, really good picture. People are immediately going to think, oh, it's fake because it's too good. While some of the best video pictures out there are not the best quality, you can't see much, but because it looks so bad, it's like it seems more authentic. So when the time does come, when we do get that really good, people are like, it looks too good to be true, and I'm gonna be like that a little bit too. It's like, this is too good to be true, but maybe, and it's gonna be hard. It's gonna be pretty hard to say. I'm not to accept it, and I'm not gonna lie. It will be like that. Anyhow, but a lot of people say like, okay, well, what about misidentification? Sure. Do some people who may not be the most well knowledge about nature maybe misidentify something like a bear or a deer or an elk or a moose or a well-known animal that people know of? Sure, in some circumstances you're walking and you see a dark figure behind a tree, but all you're seeing is the back of it. You're like, oh, what's that thing? When in reality it could possibly be a bear, standing up on a tree a little bit, and may not be fully aware. All they see is that, and they immediately just jump right to that. But, and again, is there anything wrong with people misidentifying things by accident? No. That is completely fine. But some people might, think like, oh, they're lying. It's like, sure, people like a lot of cryptids. People misidentify things all the time. Doesn't mean that they're lying. They just may be saying something that they just may not fully know what it is. So one possible theory that people have on what Bigfoot actually is, is that a lot of people are seeing bears that are standing up. Now, sure, bears do have a tendency of standing up on two legs, sometimes for losing to travel, but that doesn't mean. But could there be some cases where some of them were misidentified like that? Sure, it's 100% possible. But if you look at a bear standing up, when a bear stands up, they don't really have shoulders like like we do, like Bigfoot does. Their shoulders kind of like go down a little bit. It's kind of like they almost get like skinnier in a way too. They don't have the broadness and the broad shoulders like we do. So if you got a picture of a bear standing up, they don't have those wide defining shoulders like a lot of people say that they say when they see a Bigfoot. Like, oh, it was like this big man. It was like this big hulking thing with these big broad shoulders. That can't be a bear. Sure, grizzly bears, brown bears, like some of the big ones, might look pretty broad like that. But again, it comes back to the shoulders. They just don't have that. And of course, and then like the face and everything. So that's at least my big thing and my counter argument for why not all of them are like, oh, it's just a bear standing up. It's like, no, sometimes maybe misidentifying by complete accident, but all of them, I do not believe that at all whatsoever. And so that's kind of an internet, and that's one of my argument I've always wanted to say about it. Let's see. Okay, what happened? So another interesting little theory, because we are past time a little bit, but because there's so much to talk about, I'm not sure I've even got everything that I wanted to talk about. But we'll try doing some last few little things here and there, and then we'll end it there, and then we'll continue on. Some people also wonder, do Bigfoot migrate, or do they stay in one area? Some people argue that they migrate. So in New Jersey, for example, I met a researcher who says that Bigfoot seemed to do like I think he said like a counterclockwise motion of going through parts of New Jersey during different seasons, for like the weather or what food or berries and fish might be available during that time. But then some people say they normally stay in one area. Now their territory might be the span of like 10 to like 15 miles. So that's them technically staying in one area instead of traveling to different like counties and stuff like that. But there are evidence and theories behind supporting both the facts. So maybe some of them do travel, maybe some migrate, and some of them do stay put to a point. But obviously, until we know, we may never really know that answer. But that's the fun theory about it, trying to figure it out or get an idea of it and everything. And of course, people are always wondering, like, are Bigfoot dangerous? And yes, Bigfoot are dangerous. They are a very strong, strong animal that if they really wanted to, could break you like a twig. But a lot of times they don't want to cause trouble, because when they cause trouble for humans, cause trouble for them, and because Bigfoot are aware of like weapons and guns, and try to not bring attention to themselves when they might be seen as a problem, where they might have to draw too much attention to themselves. Like there are some people who own farms, like berry farms, and every so often we notice like a few berries and stuff being seen here and there, being taken, but but not that. But then not enough to really cause like a stir instead of taking like a lot. So they take what they need and then move on. So they don't bring too much attention to themselves, which just shows how clever they really are. Now there are some stories, like we'll go up north a little bit to Alaska and Canada, where unfortunately there are stories of them, unfortunately taking people and children, because up north, there is going to be a lot less food, especially during the colder parts of the year, which unfortunately up there is a lot or most of the time there. So they have to get other sources of food, and unfortunately for a lot, we are a source of food to them. But that doesn't mean that if you go into the woods that there's gonna one that's gonna snatch you up. No, not gonna be like that at all. But just be aware, be around of your surroundings. That's for sure. And just know, that sometimes they are dangerous, and they will attack people. Most of the times, there are very, very, very few swords of them attacking people. More or less intimidation factor, like I mentioned earlier. And God, there is just so much more. There's even some stuff that I didn't even write down, that I can't even write down to talk about and everything. But the last few things I will say is that the other reason why I do believe that Bigfoot is real, before I heard them for myself and know that 100% I know they're real, is that the amount of stories there are, that the amount of that there are some cave paintings of them depicting a very tall humanoid like creature with big feet, big hands, that are way taller than all the other Native Americans that depict that drew on the wall. The other interesting thing is that there are some tribes over in the Pacific Northwest that have like they have masks they made that look like primates. Now, there are no known species of primate in North America, or if there ever was. But again, at least going by the fossil records. But the fact that that Native Americans had masks of an ape kind of shows that they are obviously seeing something to get the idea of it. They can't just come up with something, oh, let's just do this. No, they were making it from something that they were visually seeing. So it adds a bit more credibility of that there is something going on here in the U.S. and just in the world in general, that not everyone can be lying or seeing something that's not really there. It's just not possible. So that personally believes that it's like, okay, there is something more going on to it, instead of me just believing everything I would see or hear. But now I look at it a bit more logically, and just more, or just being more, just thinking about it a bit more, instead of just jumping right to it. And so, yeah, so I believe that someday we will find. It's not a matter of if we'll ever find could get 100% evidence on Bigfoot, like a DNA, like anything like that. It's just a matter of when. It's gonna happen at some point. We will get that video evidence that will prove without 100% of a doubt that this creature is real. But unfortunately, as magnificent as a creature as it is, the only one way to 100% prove that Bigfoot is truly a real creature is we will need like DNA evidence. Sure, there's DNA evidence of people that have gone, but it's inconclusive, and and everything like that. But unfortunately, it's going to come down to we will need a body of at some point. I kind of mentioned in the last episode, like with giant squid, when giant squid started washing up on the beach, of like, all right, well, here's our evidence this creature exists. Now it's just getting it, but again, the ocean, that's a lot harder to do. So it's one unfortunate thing that people don't want to happen, but people understand that it's going to need to happen for science to prove that this creature does exist. Because there have been stories of hunters who have had this creature in their crosshair of their rifle, ready to pull the trigger. But the one thing that has stopped a lot of them is how human the face looks. Like, this doesn't look like some like wild animal. It's like, God, this thing looks like human. Would I be committing murder if I kill it? Would I get in trouble? Would I get arrested? And that's what stopped a lot of people from, getting the body that science needs, because people don't know what will happen to them. Sure, some people also want to be that person of I'm the one who killed the Bigfoot. Like, even like they will not be seen as in the best eyes in the Bigfooting world, but some people I just don't want to think have that on their conscience that they are the ones that did it. Some people want to, but then all of a sudden they're like, I'm going to do it. Ooh, that thing looks human. What? And that's what freaks a lot of people out too about it. Like, my God, I've only scratched the surface of stuff that I want to talk about with this, and we are already almost at an hour and 10 minutes already for this episode. And I'm trying to keep it around an hour or so, but like Bigfoot is my passion. I love Bigfoot. People are always find it interesting when I get so enthusiastic about talking about it. I just go about it. I'm just like, and it's like, I could keep talking about this forever. But for the time being, we will have to probably cut this short. Actually, you know what? One more thing though. So I said originally, my original thoughts were that it might be, I really go in Gigantopithecus because the theory behind it makes sense, crossing over the ice bridge and dispersing from there. But now, what do I think now? Well, I'm not 100% sure actually. The theory makes sense to a point, but not 100%. The only thing that makes a bit more sense is that it might be some sort of ancient hominid. Now, which one, I am not sure. There's a lot of theories on which one it is, but it's hard to say. Like, there's a lot more data that would be needed to confirm whether or not it really is one of those things or not. The only reason why I go by my last few little things. People say how human the face looks, the nose, the eyes, just the face in general. The fact it doesn't have fangs, so that means that it's not some sort of ape, because like I mentioned earlier, apes have those long canine-like fangs to intimidate. Now, could it be possible that there could be an ape species that evolved to stand upright like man, and it evolved to not have the fangs like we do? That's possible. Anyone's guesses about Bigfoot, cryptids, anything like that is as good as anyone's until we, discover it. Until we find out for sure, anyone's guess is as good as theirs. So I would say it is possibly some sort of ancient hominid, but I can't say for sure. It's hard to say, but I'm hoping we find out for sure as I'm still alive, and it would be so fascinating and amazing to to go from there. And so without rambling on too much and making this like a 2 hour long episode about even more stuff that I didn't even write down. Even some stuff I had written down here, I didn't even get through. I got through most of it, but I didn't get to everything. But I will also one last thing. I was actually on Finding Bigfoot at one point, and that's actually where it brought my love of like I said, to Finding Bigfoot. I was at New York Comic Con 2013, and I was on Team Bobo, and I brought my howl out, and he raised my arm up. I actually recorded that video a few years ago. I also put that on the Facebook page, so that people can see me on Finding Bigfoot. I'm not there for long, but I am there. And so without dragging this out any longer than it really needs to, I hope everyone enjoyed this one, our first real topical episode, and I hope you learned something. I hope you just thought this was interesting to listen to and everything like that. So make sure you like and subscribe and share the video. Tell people about the video. Tell people about me. Bring them over my way. If you know someone who has seen Bigfoot or you've seen anything, tell them to contact me on the Facebook page or on Cryptid Talk, or email me at cryptidtalk91@aol.com. Yes, I know it's still an AOL, but I created this email for this years ago, and so I'm sticking with it. What else? The Facebook page. Yeah, so like I'll follow the Facebook page, because that's where I'll post all updates for when the show goes live and anything else like that. Oh, and the last thing, in the comments, because I've got a lot of arguments of what it is for multiple Bigfoot. Do you think it's Bigfoot or Bigfoots? Because I've heard arguments for both sides. So whatever you think it is and why you think it, put it in the comments down below. And remember, hit that like and subscribe button, because any sort of sharing or spreading of word of mouth through this, I would greatly appreciate it, and you be my best friends of all time. So I hope everyone enjoyed this episode. Keep your ears and eyes open for the creepiness in store, because you never know what you'll find outside of your door. This has been Cryptid Talk with Michael Madden, and I hope you all have a good day.